They told you that freedom would come at 65, that all you had to do was work hard, be loyal, climb every rung of the ladder for 40 years, and in the end, you would be free. Free to travel, to rest, to finally live. But what if that was all just a well-told lie? An illusion disguised as a promise. A reward that kept you obedient, busy, distracted, while your life was consumed one day at a time. Retirement was sold as paradise, but what I found was a desert. Because what no one tells you is that when the role you've played all your life comes to an end, you're not left with just time. You're left with silence. And in silence comes collapse. A study by the Stanford Center on Longevity showed that 2/3 of retirees feel disoriented in the first 18 months. And it's not because of a lack of money. It's because of a lack of identity. They wake up in a world where they no longer know who they are, where they no longer have a title to repeat or a role to hide the emptiness. The system never prepared you for freedom. It programmed you to function. It trained you to obey, deliver, serve, but it never taught you how to be. It never prepared you for the moment when the emails stop coming, the meetings disappear, and your calendar is blank. You worked for decades thinking that one day it would all make sense, but the meaning was always there, and you were always putting it off, because you were taught to wait, to live in draft mode, always projecting your soul to a later that never came. And then, one day, you retire, and you realize that you don't know what to do with your time, that you don't know how to feel pleasure without an agenda, that you never learned to exist outside of your role. Alan Watts said, "You are not the function you perform. You are the game of life itself." But to see this, you have to face a question that no one wants to ask. If the role I played my whole life wasn't mine, whose life was it that I lived? Maybe retirement isn't the end of a chapter. Maybe it's the moment when you discover that the book was never yours. And that pain, as uncomfortable as it may be, is also an invitation, a starting point. Because if all of this was an illusion, then maybe now is the first time you have the chance to live something real. I believed that life was something natural, that what everyone did was what should be done: school, work, retirement. Only later did I realize that this was not life, it was a script, a plan silently imposed with no room for questioning. No one asked me what I wanted to be, they just told me how I should function. What we call normal life is not natural, it is a system. And that system was not designed to liberate, it was designed to tame. Industrialization did not just standardize work, it standardized existence. Each phase of life was transformed into a stage on a production line. School childhood, professional youth, discarded old age, retirement. It wasn't created out of compassion. It was a labor management policy implemented by Otto von Bismarck to free up jobs. Older people were removed not out of respect, but for productivity, and yet they sell it as the pinnacle of personal achievement, a reward for decades of obedience. We were trained not to live, but to operate. From an early age, we are taught to wait, for Friday, for vacations, for promotions, for retirement, and while we wait, we keep functioning, without realizing that we are emptying ourselves. The truth is brutal. The system never cared what I loved. It cared how much I produced. I was measured by goals, deliverables, and resumes, not by presence, emotion, or truth. And the most insidious part? They convinced me that I chose this path. But those who choose between real options. I didn't have that. I had a model, and I followed it. A publication by the American Psychological Association, The Retiring Mind, says that modern humans do not design their lives. They just follow inherited scripts. And when you start to question that script, everything falls apart, because we are not prepared for anything else. When all you know is a cog in a machine, silence seems like freedom, but it is just interrupted noise. And it is in this void that the crisis begins. The machine doesn't stop, it just replaces you. You don't retire from society. You are quietly retired. One cycle ends and another begins, that of consumption. Now I am no longer a worker, I am a customer. And the new role also comes with a manual. Smile, spend, travel, enjoy. But enjoy what? Because what we lost wasn't just time. We lost our compass, the connection to what really makes sense. And the question that has haunted me ever since is this: if the script was never mine, whose life was I living? No one warned me that the greatest grief of retirement would not be for lost time, but for the identity that disappears. I didn't miss the emails, or the meetings, or the absurd pressure to deliver results. What crushed me was the silence, the absence of function, the feeling of no longer knowing who I was. The truth is, I never learned how to be. I learned to function. For decades, my existence was defined by a badge, a job title, a set of responsibilities that gave me importance, or at least the illusion of it. When that ended, there was nothing left. Just a body moving automatically and a mind trying to understand the emptiness. Post-retirement depression isn't about boredom. It's about the deconstruction of everything you once believed yourself to be. The National Institute on Aging shows that the rate of depression increases by more than 40% in the first year after the end of a career. It's not about money. It's about meaning. Because when your life has been entirely built on a piece of paper, engineer, manager, provider, the absence of that piece of paper feels like erasure, and no one prepares you for that. No one teaches you how to exist without a role. We are indoctrinated to introduce ourselves with titles. What do you do? They ask. And when the answer is nothing, the silence reveals a darker truth. Perhaps we have never done anything that was truly ours. I remember a post I read on a forum. A 64-year-old man, a former Boeing employee, said, "I realized I never lived. I just worked." That hit me hard, because that was exactly how I felt. It wasn't just him, it was me. It was a silent crowd of former professionals who discovered too late that they had confused profession with identity. And what was left? The echo of choices not made, the trips postponed, the passions stifled, the talents ignored because they didn't fit the job. All the pieces of the real me that were amputated to fit into a position. The system didn't just use me, it shaped my perception of value. It taught me that my existence only had merit if it was useful. And now, with no measurable usefulness, who am I? Alan Watts said, "You are not a function, you are the touch of life itself." But trying to live that truth after a lifetime of being programmed to serve is like trying to breathe in a world that has only taught you to hold your breath. The end of a role is not the end of life, but it becomes the beginning of a crisis, discovering if there is anyone inside you who still knows how to live. And worse, realizing that maybe that someone has been silenced for so long that now they don't even know how to express themselves anymore. That is the cruelest death, to be alive, but not recognize yourself. And it is in this emptiness that the truth begins to reveal itself. Because maybe what I lost wasn't just a job. It was the right to be someone else. I thought I had escaped. That finally, by leaving behind the badge, the fixed schedule, the reports, I would be free. But it was just a change of clothes. The gears turned and discreetly fitted me into a new role, consumer. I didn't retire from the system. I was repositioned within it. Before, I produced. Now, I pay to feel like I exist. And this transition was sold as freedom. Retire and enjoy life. But what they never told you is that even that comes with a manual. Take exotic trips, buy real estate for fun, sign up for retirement plans, take up expensive hobbies, and smile. Always smile. But behind every advertising smile, there is an exploited fear. Fear of emptiness. Fear of not knowing what to do with your life. And it is this fear that drives the machine. The retirement industry is worth trillions. Travel agencies, insurance companies, banks, and financial advisors sell the idea of a fulfilling post-career life as if it were something you could buy in installments. But I understood too late. It wasn't freedom they were offering me. It was consumption disguised as autonomy. They know I never learned to exist outside a script. They know I was conditioned to depend on structures. So they offer me a new one. The perfect plan for the best years of your life. But the plan isn't for you. It's about you. You are the target. Your fear is the product. And the solution they sell is control. The same control they took away from you in the beginning, when they told you what to study, where to work, how long to serve. Alan Watts said that the obsession with security is the very root of insecurity. And that's exactly what I realized. The more I sought stability, the more fragile I became. Every plan, every insurance policy, every promise of peace of mind made me feel less capable, less whole, as if I could only be someone real if I followed another script. They promised me that now would be my time to live, but everything seemed scripted. A new kind of prison, made of tourist itineraries, shopping, and financial advice. And I obeyed, because I didn't know any other way to feel useful, or at least busy. But there comes a time when even luxury gets tiring, and in the silence between one purchase and another, between one destination and the next, I realized what I was really looking for. It wasn't rest, it was direction. It wasn't comfort, it was presence. What I was missing wasn't money, it was identity. I retired my badge, but I continued running away from myself, because I was told that freedom was the right to do whatever you want after 65. But it's not. Freedom is discovering that you never had to wait for permission to be who you are. If your retirement is still a script, then you haven't escaped. You've just changed costumes. And what hurts isn't discovering this at the end. It's realizing that this lie started long before. Since I was little, I was trained to wait. First, when I grew up, then when I graduated, when I got a good job, when I bought my house, when I retired. There was always a promised later, and I learned to project my happiness there, into the future. I was conditioned to live as if life were an endless staircase, each step a new goal. And so, I was never present anywhere, because the now never seemed enough. Science has a name for this: delay discounting, a psychological addiction that taught me to devalue the present in exchange for future rewards. A subtle conditioning that made me believe that truly living was something that would come later. But that later never comes. It's a mirage, and every time I think I'm close, it recedes another step. Meanwhile, the years go by, and I, like so many, have become an expert at surviving. I learned to control schedules, bills, tasks, but I didn't learn to exist, to be, to breathe with meaning. Retirement should have been the time to finally live, but I no longer knew how. All that remained was a man prepared for everything, except the present, trained to produce, plan, resist, but not to feel. The tragedy is not that many of us put off life. It is that we confuse this postponement with maturity. We call the act of suffocating everything that makes us feel a live responsibility. Now is not the time, we say. And so, the time never comes. Alan Watts warned, "Stop measuring your life, live it." But that is subversive in a world that rewards you for every number and punishes you for every pause. We are taught that to stop is to waste time, that to rest without guilt is a privilege for those who have earned it. The result? When we finally have time, there is no meaning left. When the rush is over, the soul is too exhausted to run after itself. And that's when the pain appears. Because deep down, we know, we feel it. We've spent decades with our hearts on hold. Decades living on autopilot, as if existence were just a draft for something better that never began. It's not old age that breaks us. It's the absence of presence. It's looking back and realizing that, in our eagerness to build a perfect life, we forgot to live it. And then comes the question that haunts those who have finally stopped. What did I do with all this? Not with the money, the possessions, or the positions, but with the days, with the minutes, with the silent miracle that was being alive and not realizing it. After all that, I was left with only one question. If it wasn't freedom they sold me, what was the real thing? The answer came in the most unexpected place, in the void, when all the papers fell, when no plan made sense anymore, when the silence was no longer filled with deadlines or goals. I finally heard something different, not a ready answer, but a presence, an inner whisper that said, "You're still here." And that's enough. That was when I understood. The freedom we seek is not a destination. It is not found in financial plans or travel itineraries. It is in the ability to be whole in the present moment, to strip away your role and experience life without performance. It is in the simple act of allowing yourself to exist without justification. True retirement does not happen at 65. True retirement is internal. It's when you disconnect from the illusion that you need to earn your own dignity. It's when you stop putting off your soul. And yes, it takes courage, because living without a script is scary. There are no promises, no guarantees, no titles. Just you, with your questions, your silences, your most forgotten desires, but also with a freedom that no one can sell you, because it was never theirs to begin with. It's not about doing more. It's about doing less, with truth, less distraction, less rushing, less obedience to the system, more depth, more time with those who matter, more meaningful breaks. And if all this seems too difficult, perhaps it's because we're still intoxicated by the idea that living is producing. But it's not. Living is feeling, and real life begins where control ends. So, if this video spoke to you, if something inside you stirred, if the silence of this message found an echo in yours, like this video now and subscribe to the channel. Here, every word is made for those who, like me and perhaps like you, have decided to break free from the script. And if you believe that these ideas need to continue echoing out there, in the right ears, in the right souls, consider leaving a donation of any amount. This isn't charity, it's resistance. It's you saying that there's still room, amid the noise of the world, for a truth that's not in a hurry. Because in the end, the greatest rebellion is to stop waiting and just start living.